Have you ever questioned what it really means to live at the threshold? To seek balance between faith and doubt, between the sacred and the world that mostly isn't paying attention? This is the hidden threshold, a space for the lived, evolving practice, a place where the sacred and the ordinary keep meeting and neither one stays the same. Rooted in pagan and magical tradition, but open to anyone who's ever tried to live what they believe. I'm Veyrin Vale, and I'm glad you're here. Let's begin. I've got a tarot deck right here. There's nothing particularly flashy about it. It's just plain old cardboard, a little worn down and soft at the edges from constant shuffling and handling. If you didn't know better, you might think it's just an unusual deck of playing cards. Pagans keep objects like this, though. Wands, athames, tarot decks, bones, runes, all kinds of little things that feel more important than their physical form or whatever they're worth. And it's not unique to pagans. Catholics have rosaries. Buddhists and Hindus use malas. Muslims lay out their prayer mats. Everyone's got something, even if the traditions themselves are worlds apart. Different theologies, different customs, different histories, but people always seem to end up holding something. Weird, right? Take a second to think about it. None of these religions actually say you can't pray without beads or meditate without a mat. You can do the practice without the thing. Yet, the thing ends up in our hands almost every single time, no matter the tradition. That's what's on my mind right now. Why does serious spiritual practice, again and again, across belief systems that barely overlap, keep landing on a physical object to help do work you could, in theory, do empty-handed? What's the object really giving us that the belief on its own can't provide? Now, the point is not to tear down the tools. I use mine all the time. They mean something to me. I'm curious because I think the answer actually reveals something true about how spiritual practice works, and I doubt it's the typical answer people toss around. So let's start there. Seemingly regular objects, and a real question about why we're drawn to hold them at all. Let's start with the athame, or the wand. They're pretty much interchangeable here, although there is some variation from person to person. They both do essentially the same thing: direct energy. Here's the thing nobody wants to admit right off the bat, though. You don't actually need either one. Your hand works. Point a finger, focus your intention, and you'll get the job done. The tool's not crucial. So why do I always pick one up when I cast a circle? I've asked myself that a lot. It'd be easy to say the athame or the wand is just for show, a nod to tradition, something to make the whole thing feel more real. But that's not really it. When I'm holding an athame and tracing the circle, I feel a focus I don't get with an empty hand. There's precision. The energy doesn't just spill out everywhere. It goes right where I aim the blade. Suddenly, my intention isn't just floating around. It has shape and direction. Now, let's be clear. There's no secret magic in the steel. The athame isn't humming with power when it sits in a drawer. Until someone picks it up with real intent, it's just an object, nothing more. The power comes from me. The tool isn't generating energy. It's channeling what I already bring, giving it a place to go. But here's where people go wrong on both sides. Some folks act like the tool's working all by itself, full of magical power no matter who's holding it. That's not it. Others swing the other way and say, see, the tool's pointless, just decoration. Everything would work the same without it. Nope, also wrong. Focus matters. Gathering energy and making it less scattered takes real effort, and having a tool helps a lot. It's hard to get that kind of sharpness with just willpower alone. So if you don't need it, Why use it? Simple. Because the tool doesn't do the work for you, but it takes what you already have and hones it, makes it sharper and clearer. That's about as useful as it gets. Now, the tarot deck is a whole different thing from the athame. They're both tools I use, but they don't do the same job. Not even close. The athame directs energy, but the tarot deck, it doesn't direct anything. It translates. Let me try to explain. Intuition is real. I really believe that. Call it whatever you want, but there's this sense just under the surface, picking up on things before your brain can even put words to them. Really, intuition could use anything to speak. Some folks read tea leaves, some people watch the way smoke curls from a candle or toss sticks on the dirt and read the pattern. People have been doing all that forever, and it works as much as any of this works. But the thing about the tarot deck, for me, is that its vocabulary is already built and already widely shared. Tea leaves have their own tradition of reading, and so do cast stones, and so does smoke. People have spent centuries developing real systems of meaning around all of them. It's not that those methods lack structure. It's that I haven't spent the years building fluency in them the way generations of readers have built fluency in a deck that looks basically the same no matter whose hands it's in. 78 cards, every single one already packed with layers of meaning I didn't have to develop myself, and a spread that provides its own structure before a single card gets turned over. So, instead of my intuition having to dig through the chaos and build meaning from scratch, it grabs a symbol that's already there, already shared, already legible to me. That symbol does the heavy lifting, offering up something my conscious mind hasn't figured out yet. If you ask me what tool I'd keep above all the others, well, it'd be a tough call. Seriously close. The athame and the deck are neck and neck. But if I had to pick, I'd go with the tarot deck. And saying this out loud, I think I finally get why. It's not that reading stones or smoke is somehow less legitimate. Plenty of people read those systems fluently the same way I read cards. It's that I never built that fluency myself, and the tarot deck meets me exactly where my own years of practice actually are. A handful of stones scattered on the ground carries just as much potential meaning as a spread of cards. I just don't have the same years in that particular language yet. So here's the real question. What does a symbol offer your intuition that silence doesn't? I think it comes down to this. Yeah, intuition can show up in silence, but silence doesn't give you anything to hold on to. Symbols do. The tower crashing down, the fool taking that wild step off a cliff, cups tipping over and spilling everything. Those images turn vague feelings into something with real shape. Something you can actually use. So yeah, the athame directs, the tarot deck translates. They're different, but underneath it all, I think it's about the same thing. It's just easier for me to work with my own intuition when there's something real to channel it through, instead of trying to pull everything out of thin air. Actually, just the other day, I reached for my deck that way. Not just for fun or because I was killing time, but because I had a real question and no clue where I stood on it. I shuffled, turned a card, and suddenly, whatever part of me had been just circling around the problem finally landed. The symbol did what silence couldn't do. So if the athame directs and the deck translates, I started to get curious about what these tools actually do in other traditions. Not just guessing from the outside, but paying attention to the pattern, because it keeps popping up in places with nothing else in common. Take the rosary. You've got this string of beads, right? You count through them one by one, reciting the same prayer. On the surface, people might say it's just a tally, like you're keeping score, but honestly, I think it's doing more than that. The counting lets part of your mind relax because you don't have to split your focus between praying and remembering how many times you've prayed. The beads hold the count for you. That's not trivial. It's the same kind of work the athame does, just solving a slightly different problem. Mala beads are pretty similar in meditation. Rolling the beads through your fingers gives your hands something steady, which helps your mind stay in one place instead of wandering off wherever it wants. The beads aren't just decoration. They actually anchor the whole practice. Look at the prayer mat. It marks out a specific space, a set ground where this practice happens and nothing else. Just like I draw a circle before real work begins, the mat says, right here, this is where it happens, nowhere else. It's the same instinct that turns a circle into something different from just empty air. Nobody in these traditions sees their objects as mere accessories. Nobody thinks the rosary beads are just for show or imagines a prayer mat as irrelevant while kneeling in prayer. These objects do real work, the same kind of work my athame or tarot deck do for me. Here's the question I keep asking. Why does devotion, in every serious tradition, always seem to need something to hold? It's almost universal. It's not confined to any one path. Real belief wants something to move through, because having a steady grip, a symbol to follow, or an object marking a boundary gives belief a place to settle. Every tradition that's stuck with this for long enough comes up with its own version, like they're all answering the same question without ever actually talking to each other. Here's the real truth. After spending this whole episode insisting the tool isn't strictly necessary, why do I keep reaching for it? Because it makes things easier. It's sharper. But mostly, the tool draws a line that provides more clarity than not using it. Let's dig into that, because that's the heart of it. There's a world of difference between thinking about doing the work and actually doing it. I can sit all day, turning a question over and getting nowhere. That's not the same as actually grabbing the tarot deck, shuffling, and flipping a card. That simple act shifts everything for me. I'm not just hovering at the edges of the question anymore. I'm in it. Same thing goes for the athame or the wand. I can imagine casting a circle, picture it in my mind, intend it with all my might, but none of that feels the same as physically drawing the line. Once the blade's in my hand and I make that motion, I've moved from considering to doing. The tool marks the shift, not just for anything unseen out there, because honestly, most of the time, nobody's watching, but for me. It's a signal. I'm telling myself, hey, we're doing this. So what actually changes the moment you pick up the tool? You stop rehearsing and start acting. It's not a little thing, it's the whole point. Now here's where I want to be clear about something, especially since it comes up all the time in pagan circles, and probably everywhere else. There's this weird idea that the harder way is always the more authentic way. That if you can do the thing without a tool, reaching for one is cheating, or somehow means you're not serious enough. I just don't buy it. Ease doesn't cancel out authenticity. Using what works isn't lazy. It's respecting the practice enough to choose what gets the job done, instead of making my life harder just for the sake of it. I don't do things by hand and call it purer just because it's tougher. I grab the athame because it works better. I shuffle the tarot deck because pulling cards gives my intuition something solid, and it's a lot more direct than just staring into space. That's not the easy way out. It's actually a deeper kind of seriousness, built on what really works instead of what only looks impressive. I'm still holding the same tarot deck I started with. It hasn't changed one bit. It's still got the worn corners, the cheap cardboard feel, the regular weight you'd expect from any old deck. And that's really the point. On its own, this deck's nothing special. It doesn't glow, there's no secret energy humming away, tucked in a drawer somewhere. It's just cardboard, until you decide to pick it up and give it some meaning. Suddenly, it's not just cardboard anymore. That shift isn't small, even though it sneaks by most of the time, almost invisible. An object turns into an instrument the moment someone uses it with intention. It happens every time someone wraps their fingers around a rosary during prayer, or lets a mala bead slide through their hands in meditation, or steps onto a prayer mat and changes the meaning of the ground beneath their feet. Most people in those traditions don't know each other. They're not swapping stories or techniques. But somehow, they've all ended up at the same place, just using totally different things to get there. I'm not trying to make some grand claim about what these tools really are deep down. I don't even think there's one complete and tidy answer hidden under it all. Still, it's worth noticing how something ordinary can sit in your hand doing absolutely nothing, right up to the second it suddenly means the world. If something from today stayed with you, you don't have to figure it out right now. Let it sit and do what it does. That's usually where the good stuff happens anyway. You can also find writing from this same place, shorter pieces on Substack and longer ones on Medium. There are links in the show notes. I'm Veyrin Vale, and this has been The Hidden Threshold, part of the Obscure Meridian family of projects. Thanks for being here.